Hello, my name is Grace. I want to tell you something I wish someone had told me years ago, something that would have saved me countless sleepless nights, endless self-doubt, and the pain of pretending to be someone I wasn't. The world can be loud, harsh, and demanding. But the one voice you hear the most is your own. If that voice is unkind, even the smallest challenges feel like mountains. I learned. Sometimes the hardest thing is not fighting the world, it's choosing to be gentle with yourself while standing strong outside. Let me share with you how I discovered what it truly means to be kind to yourself and brave with the world. It changed my life. I grew up thinking that being hard on myself was the only way to succeed. Push yourself, they said. Be better, I whispered to myself every time I fell short. And so, I did. I pushed until I was exhausted. I aimed for better until it broke me. For years, I believed that my inner critic was my guide, that the more I listened to it, the faster I would grow, the more I would improve, the closer I would get to the version of myself that was finally enough. But it wasn't true. It never worked that way. Let me take you back to where it all began to change. The breaking point. It was a rainy Tuesday afternoon. I remember that detail clearly because I always loved the rain, but that day, I couldn't feel any of its comfort. I was sitting alone in my small apartment, surrounded by the mess I didn't have the energy to clean, staring at a laptop screen filled with unfinished work, emails unanswered, assignments overdue. My to-do list looked like a mountain, and I felt like a pebble trying to move it with my bare hands. And all I could hear was that voice in my head. You're lazy. You're not good enough. You'll never catch up. Everyone else is ahead of you. What's wrong with you? The weight of those words crushed my chest. Not one of them came from someone else. They were all mine. My own voice, my own judgment. And suddenly, in the silence of that moment, I asked myself something that changed everything. If someone I loved were in this exact situation, what would I say to them? I closed my eyes. I pictured my little sister, overwhelmed, like I was, or my best friend, crying the way I had just moments ago. Would I call them lazy? Worthless? Not good enough? No, never. I'd hold them. I'd remind them how much they've already done. I'd tell them it's okay to rest. I'd tell them they are trying, and that's enough. I'd tell them they are loved, not because they're perfect, but because they're human. Then the realization hit me so hard I nearly cried all over again. Why can't I speak to myself like that? Learning the language of kindness, that was the first time I truly saw how cruel I had been to myself. Not just that day, for years. It was like I had been dragging a bully around in my head, mistaking it for motivation, so I made a promise that day. I would learn to speak to myself the way I speak to the people I love, not just on good days, but especially on the hard ones. It didn't happen overnight. Being kind to yourself isn't something we're taught in school or praised for in society. But I took small steps. I started by catching the negative thoughts. When I'd say, "You're so behind," I'd pause and replace it with, "You're doing the best you can with what you have." When I'd mess up and my instinct was to say, "You're such a failure," I'd gently say, "It's okay. Everyone makes mistakes. You're learning." Every time I treated myself with kindness, it felt strange, uncomfortable even. Like I was breaking a rule. But slowly, the discomfort faded, and a strange thing began to happen. I got stronger. Kindness builds strength, not weakness. There's a lie. We're told that being kind to yourself will make you soft, weak, or lazy, that if you don't push hard enough, you won't grow. But here's what I learned from my own life. You don't need to be cruel to improve. You need to be consistent. You need to feel safe within yourself to take risks. You need love, not shame. When I started treating myself like a friend. I didn't become lazy. I became more motivated. Not because I feared failure, but because I believed I deserved success. Not because I was trying to prove something, but because I genuinely wanted to grow. On the days I failed, I no longer stayed down for weeks, punishing myself. I got up faster. I learned faster because I wasn't afraid of my own judgment anymore. And when you're not afraid of yourself, the world becomes a lot less scary. The mirror test own. Small ritual changed me forever. I call it the mirror test. Every morning, I'd look at myself in the mirror, not to judge how I looked, but to connect with the person staring back. At first, I felt silly. I couldn't even hold my own gaze. But I made it a habit. I'd look myself in the eyes and say one kind sentence out loud. No matter how small, you're doing okay. I'm proud of you. You made it through yesterday, and that's enough. Sometimes, I didn't believe the words, but I said them anyway. And over time, they started to sink in. My inner voice changed. My relationship with myself healed. And with that, everything else started to shift. My work, my relationships, my confidence, because here's the truth I wish I had learned earlier. You can't hate yourself into a better version, but you can love yourself there. When the world is loud, be gentle with you. People will judge you. They will misunderstand you. Life will throw chaos your way. And through all that, the only constant voice in your life is your own. So ask yourself, is that voice your enemy or your ally? Being kind to yourself isn't just about bubble baths and breaks. It's about how you respond when you fail. It's about what you tell yourself when no one is watching. It's about the little choices, the inner words that either build you up or break you down. I learned that the bravest thing I could ever do was to stop fighting myself and start fighting for myself instead. A challenge for you if you're like how I used to be drowning in self-criticism, thinking it's the only way. I challenge you to try something different today. Just for one day. Every time you mess up, forget something, fall behind, or feel low, speak to yourself the way you would to someone you love. Not perfectly, just gently. Watch how everything begins to change from the inside out. Because the journey to bravery doesn't start with the world, it starts with being kind to the person you wake up with every day. You are always thought brave people weren't afraid. You know, the ones who speak up in meetings without stuttering, walk into rooms full of strangers with their heads held high, or take big risks and make it look effortless. For a long time, I believed that if I felt fear, it meant I wasn't brave, that I had to wait until I was ready, until the fear was gone. So I waited. I waited to speak up. I waited to chase my dreams. I waited to be confident, but fear never left, and neither did the dreams I kept postponing. And then, something changed. I learned that courage wasn't about waiting for fear to disappear. It was about doing the thing anyway. Let me tell you how I learned that lesson. Not in a book, not in a quote, but in the hardest, most awkward moment of my life. The presentation that changed my life. It was a Thursday. My manager called me into her office and said, "Grace, I'd like you to present your findings to the full department next week. You're the one who knows the data best." I smiled politely, but inside, my heart dropped to my stomach. A presentation, in front of 30 people, with a mic, a projector. I had always been the quiet one, the behind-the-scenes worker. I did my job well, but I never raised my hand. I never volunteered to speak. I stayed invisible, where it felt safe. That night, I sat on my bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking of every possible way to escape. Maybe I could call in sick. Maybe I could accidentally delete my slides. Maybe I could ask someone else to do it for me. But then another thought crept in. What if this is the moment I've been waiting for? What if the only way out is through? I didn't feel brave. I felt sick. But something inside me, maybe exhaustion from always hiding, whispered, do it. Even if you're scared. Especially because you're scared. Preparing through the panic every evening that week, I practiced that presentation like it was a performance. I stood in front of the mirror and talked to myself. My voice trembled. My palms sweated. I stumbled over words I had said a dozen times. But I kept showing up, not because I felt confident, but because I wanted to become the kind of person who didn't run away. Every morning, I repeated a small mantra, bravery is doing it scared. It became my anchor. The night before the presentation, I barely slept. I was afraid of forgetting my lines, of tripping, of people laughing, of freezing mid-sentence. But when the morning came, I showed up anyway. The moment of truth, standing in front of the department, my hands shaking, I looked out at the sea of faces and I said the first sentence, then the second, and before I knew it, I was halfway through. I stumbled once. I lost my place once, but no one laughed. No one rolled their eyes. They listened. They nodded. They clapped when I finished. Asterisk, I didn't give a perfect presentation, but I gave it, and that changed everything. Because after that moment, something inside me shifted. I realized fear didn't have to stop me. It could walk beside me, and I could still move forward. What courage really looks like. We often think courage looks like superheroes, like bold speeches, like giant leaps. But in real life, courage is quiet. It's walking into the interview, even though your stomach is in knots. It's applying for the job you think you're underqualified for. It's telling someone the truth, even when your voice shakes. It's showing up, again and again, even after you failed before. The bravest people I know aren't fearless. They're the ones who act despite the fear. And the more I did that, the more I practiced showing up scared, the stronger I got. Courage is a muscle here. Something no one tells you. Courage is not a personality trait. It's a muscle, and like any muscle, it grows through use. The first time I spoke up in a meeting, my voice shook. The 10th time, it didn't. The first time I shared my idea with a client, I apologized before and after. The 5th time, I shared it with confidence. The first time I posted something honest online, I wanted to hide, but the responses I got told me I wasn't alone. Each small act of courage made me braver, not instantly but gradually. Because every time you do something scared, your brain learns I survived that. And the next time, it's just a little easier. The world rewards the brave, not the perfect. There's a secret I've learned about the world. It doesn't expect you to be perfect. It responds to your boldness. People notice when you show up, when you try, when you dare to speak, even if your voice trembles, when you take the first step, even if you don't know the outcome. I got opportunities I never expected, not because I was the smartest or the most skilled, but because I showed up when others didn't. I said yes when others said, maybe next time. I said, I'll try, when others said, I'm not ready. And I learned that you rarely feel ready before the moment. The readiness comes after you leap, not before. My journal of bravery. One tool that helped me build courage was something I call my journal of bravery. Every day, I wrote down one brave thing I did, no matter how small. Spoke in the meeting today. Went to the gym even though I felt awkward. Said no to something I didn't want to do. Shared my idea with my team. Reading back those entries made me realize I was braver than I gave myself credit for. And you are too. You've survived so much. You've endured silent battles. You've taken steps no one even saw. Bravery doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it's just choosing to keep going, A message for the quiet ones. If you're the quiet one, the overthinker, the anxious one, the self-doubter, I see you. I was you. You don't need to wait until you feel brave to do the brave thing. You just need to take the first shaky step. And when you do, something magical happens. You stop shrinking to fit the world. You rise to meet it. And eventually, it rises to meet you too. Bravery isn't loud, it's real. Let's be clear. Bravery isn't about pretending. It's not about faking confidence or denying your fear. It's about being real, saying, I'm scared, but I'm still going to do this. That's powerful. That's rare. That's what moves people. And that's what changed my life. The day I stopped waiting for confidence and started choosing courage was the day everything began to shift. Not all at once, but step by step. Shaky, sweaty, terrified steps that turned into steady ones. Your turn today. I want to leave you with a question. What's one brave thing you can do today even if you're scared? Maybe it's starting a conversation. Maybe it's applying for that opportunity. Maybe it's telling your truth. Maybe it's standing up for yourself. Whatever it is, do it afraid. Do it anyway. Because the world doesn't need perfection. It needs people who are real, kind, and brave. People like you. There was a time in my life when I believed I had to choose between two versions of myself. I could either be soft and calm, the peaceful one who never raised her voice, never caused conflict, and never said no, or I could be strong, the bold, loud version who said what she wanted, set boundaries, and chased success with fire in her eyes. But every time I leaned too far into one side, I lost something important. When I tried to be peaceful all the time, I got walked over. When I tried to be strong all the time, I lost touch with my heart. And somewhere in between, I felt confused, tired, and torn. It wasn't until a difficult season in my life that I finally realized something powerful. True strength isn't loud, and real peace isn't weakness. You don't have to choose between being soft or strong. You can be both. Let me tell you how I learned that lesson. The hard way. The year I lost myself, it was a year of chaos. My job became demanding. My personal life fell apart. A relationship I thought would last ended suddenly. I had to move out of my apartment with just a week's notice. I was overwhelmed, anxious, and constantly tired, but I still kept smiling. I wanted to look like I had it all together. I didn't want anyone to worry about me. So I did what I always did when life got hard. I worked harder. I pushed through. I kept going. People said I was strong. But inside, I was falling apart at night. I'd sit in my room and feel a deep emptiness, the kind that doesn't scream, but quietly drains you. I wasn't sleeping. I wasn't eating properly. I wasn't listening to myself. I was just surviving. One evening, I sat on the floor of my room, completely burned out. I looked at my reflection in the mirror and didn't recognize the woman. Staring back, I whispered out loud, "Why do I feel so weak when I've been so strong?" And suddenly I understood. I had spent so long being strong for everyone else that I had forgotten to be gentle with myself. The myth of constant strength. We live in a world that praises toughness. Keep pushing. Don't show weakness. Be a warrior. But here's the truth, no one told me until I had to find it on my own. You can be strong and still need rest. You can be bold and still be afraid. You can be powerful and still cry. Real strength isn't about pretending you're okay when you're not. It's about being honest. Being aware. Taking care of yourself so you don't burn out. That night on the floor, I decided I was done pretending. I was done holding everything inside. I was done believing that self-care was selfish, or that rest made me weak. I wanted peace, not just the kind that comes when things are quiet. but the kind you carry inside of you, even when life is loud. Creating inner peace. So I started small. Every morning. Instead of checking my phone the moment I opened my eyes, I sat in silence for 5 minutes. I placed my hand over my heart, breathed deeply, and asked myself, how are you really feeling today? At first, it was hard. I wasn't used to slowing down. I wasn't used to checking in with myself. But the more I did it, the more I realized how much I had been ignoring my needs. Some days I needed rest. Some days I needed movement. Some days I just needed to cry, and little by little, I started building a relationship with myself. I created rituals that brought me peace. Morning walks, journaling, listening to calming music, sipping tea without distractions. I started saying no to things that drained me, even if people didn't understand. I learned that peace wasn't something I had to search for, it was something I could create. But peace alone wasn't enough, because while I was healing on the inside, I still had to face the world on the outside, the world that didn't slow down just because I needed a break. That's when I learned the second part of the lesson. Building outer strength without losing yourself. The more peaceful I became, the more clearly I could see what I had tolerated for far too long. I had let people cross my boundaries. I had accepted treatment that made me feel small. I had dimmed my light to make others comfortable. But peace without power is not peace. It's silence. It's suppression. It's giving up parts of yourself just to keep things calm. I realized I needed strength, but not the kind that shouts or fights. I needed the kind of strength that says, this is not okay, and I won't accept it. I deserve better than this. No is a complete sentence. So I started setting boundaries. At first, my hands would shake. My voice would tremble. But every time I stood up for myself, even in small ways, I grew stronger. And the amazing part, the more I respected myself, the more others did too. The harmony of peace and power balancing, inner peace with outer strength changed everything. I started showing up differently, not from a place of fear, but from a place of grounded confidence. When someone disrespected me, I didn't stay silent. But I didn't explode either. I spoke clearly, calmly, and firmly. And that scared some people, because peace with power is a quiet kind of unstoppable. I learned to protect my energy, to walk away from chaos, to choose calm, not because I was weak, but because I knew I deserved better. You don't have to scream to be heard. You don't have to fight to be strong. You don't have to choose between being kind and being powerful. You can be both. You can say no with love. You can walk away with grace. You can speak your truth gently, but with unshakable confidence. That is balance. That is freedom. A simple practice. The Power Peace Check-in of the most powerful tools I now use is something I call the Power Peace Check-in. Whenever I feel off, whether I'm overwhelmed or unsure, I ask myself 2 questions. What would bring me peace right now? What would help me stand in my power? Sometimes the answer is to take a break. Sometimes it's to have a hard conversation. Sometimes it's both. This practice helps me stay connected to both sides of myself, the part that needs care and the part that needs courage. You deserve both if you're someone who always chooses peace, but never speaks up. You deserve to take up space. And if you're someone who always fights, always pushes, always leads, you deserve rest. You don't have to live in extremes. You don't have to break yourself to protect your peace, or harden yourself to show your strength. You are allowed to be soft and strong, gentle and powerful, calm and courageous. That's not a contradiction. That's wholeness. Final thoughts. Looking back now, I'm proud of the version of me that broke down on the floor. She was tired. Yes, but she was ready to change. And I'm proud of the version of me today, the one who still gets scared, still gets overwhelmed, but no longer hides from herself or the world. I've found that sweet spot, the balance between my inner peace and my outer strength, and it's where I feel most alive. And you can too. So, if no one has told you this lately, let me be the one to say, you don't have to choose. You can be kind and firm. You can be peaceful and powerful. You can be both. Be kind to yourself. Be brave with the world. And never forget you are enough, exactly as you are.